We use our shoulders so much, whether that is cooking food in the kitchen, whether that is playing with our children, whether that is moving on the mats, whether that is just typical day-to-day stuff, working. But the problem is that sometimes it doesn't actually cause us that much pain, and we don't really think that there's actually an injury there. So we don't actually ever take any positive action to sort it out. The reason for this is differences in blood flow in certain areas. But it gets to a point where you actually want to sort this out. And chasing pain-free, being pain-free, is actually a bit of a problem, right? Talk more about that in a sec. But what I will say is that a shoulder injury, overcoming a shoulder injury, the process of that is the ultimate test of a man's character, because it takes a strong man to hold his hands up and say, I have a shoulder injury. It takes an even stronger man to blame himself for that shoulder injury. So let's get cracking. I'm going to talk specifically about rotator cuff injuries today. However, I'm going to talk about the mindset first and foremost. And then we're going to talk about prioritization of strengthening and rehab, and then changes to your overall program to make sure that you are getting the absolute best training week. I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller here. Actually, you know what? I'll keep myself big. Okay, for those that are new to the channel, my name is Paul Green. I'm an online coach. I run the longevity program in which I get results with multiple different injuries like this. I'm a former British paratrooper and Special Forces Support Group operator, trained elite soldiers to get results similar to this, building strong and resilient joints so that they can go and do crazy endeavours with less injuries. Purple belt on the mats. Here, looking absolutely awesome here. Right? Love working with grapplers. They are my people. And yeah, for the most part, grapplers fill the longevity program. Okay, we have to talk about the mindset, right? Because we have to be honest with ourselves. Our beliefs, our ability to problem solve, and everything we've done in our lives up until this point is our fault. The reason your shoulder hurts is because you have made a sequence of decisions over the course of weeks, months, and years to continue to allow that your shoulder to hurt. So you need to basically blame yourself. And by blaming yourself as a baseline, everything after that is a really important growth opportunity, right? So let's talk about some of the toxic, typical mindsets in which most men will employ, right? They're going to stop training that area because it hurts. And the reason they stop training that area is because they've led to believe that they're basically scared to make it worse, right? And they're scared to make it worse, but they're scared of, a little bit of pain, right? So because most blokes think that reducing the pain immediately solves all of them negative character traits, all of that poor discipline for years of lacking the strengthening of their joints properly, lack of weightlifting, lack of eating great foods, lack of prioritizing sleep. They think that simply just reducing the pain is going to fix the issue. And if you sit here and think about it, all of them years of neglect, all of them years of saying, I don't have an injury. It's all right. It's just a little bit sore. It's just age. It's just genetics. All of those painkillers and anti-inflammatories consumed, all of those visits to the massage therapist, you simply think that reducing the pain means all of that, all of those decisions that you've made, all of those beliefs are just completely unwound. It's not true. It's a character problem, right? It's a character problem, a physical solution. So, that leads men to chase anything and everything that reduces pain instead of choosing to strengthen that weak area. As men, if we point the finger at somebody and say, haha, that area of your body is weak, that masculine energy within us is like, no, I'm a man, I need to be strong. By reframing it in your mind as not reducing pain, of reducing a weak area, strengthening a weak area, instantly you're in a state of mind of action, positive action, which is a byproduct of that is going to do this, reduce pain. The next problem in this phase, in this sequence, in this protocol of productivity could be anywhere between 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in. Quick. If you do things properly, you will be pain-free very quickly. Many guys on my program are testament to that, right? But when the pain is gone, you think that the problem is solved. Is that true? Realistically, is that joint all of a sudden strong and resilient enough to cope with the demands in which you place on it because it's pain-free? Rushing back to your crazy physical endeavours like nothing ever happened. Basically thinking that the area of concern is no longer at risk when it is at huge risk. If anything, it's at more risk when you are pain-free than it was when you were in pain, because you have the instant feedback of the body saying it's fucked, versus when you take painkillers, anti-inflammatories, or when you actually get to a point where the joint is a little bit strong. Crazy endeavours, let's stop the strength training, even though the proof of concept, it's actually worked. So, clearly, very dangerous mindsets to have. These need to be opposed. Don't stop strength training the exact area because it hurts. Instead, prioritize the strengthening of that area because it hurts. And what I'm saying by prioritize, the most volume of your weekly training allocation should be to your weakest area. People on my program with a shoulder injury are training their shoulders more than any other muscle in their body. Why? Because that's their weakest area. Very simple thing, but a very powerful thing that is needed, completely needed. Don't chase anything that reduces pain. We want pain, we want inflammation. Without pain and inflammation, we cannot have the feedback to either guide a regression in the exercise or a progression. And without the inflammation, the area never gets strong. Without blood flow, the area doesn't get strong. It's impossible. The pain gone, the problem is not solved because the area is still weak as piss and needs to be strong and needs to then be resilient. This doesn't mean that you can't do jiu-jitsu, you can't do mountain biking, you can't do kayaking when it's pain-free. You can. It just has to be at a bit of a reduced intensity until you actually build the strength back up. Hopefully appreciate them reframes of the dangerous mindsets in which most blokes have. The reality of the situation is this is the most important thing. The pain was never the problem. The pain was a response to the actual problem. And there is hundreds of billions of pounds spent, and there is a lot of time on a lot of waiting lists all around the world for people that have the priority to reduce the pain instead of improve the capacity, improve the function. If there is pain, there is a lack of capacity. And what I mean by capacity is a lack of function as well. Basically, you cannot put X demands through that area of your body because it is weak. To improve the capacity of the body's ability to put more demands through that area, you need to make it stronger, right? Which is what rehab is. So the pain was never the problem. The reason for the pain is because it was a symptom to the actual root cause problem, right? And you need to use the pain as a frigging absolute direct way of identifying the exact weak area. Do not, under any circumstances, try and reduce the pain unless it is affecting your sleep. That's the only rare occasion that I will say, take some pain medication, take some anti-inflammatories if it's affecting your sleep, because sleep is arguably more important than anything else, right? And this is obviously the brutal truth as well, the character, because your character has got you in this position. It's not your age, it's not your job, it's because you haven't been doing the right things for long enough to make sure your joints are strong. And I'm not going to sit here and say that injuries aren't inevitable. Injuries are absolutely inevitable, especially when you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But at the end of the day, if you look back, you could have done more, and that's absolutely fine. It's about looking at that situation thinking, right, okay, my shoulder is currently fucked. Where have I been lazy in the past 5-10 years? Can I use this as a moment to improve the strength of my knees, as an improvement to my lower back strength? Can I use this identified character problem to absolutely address all of my weaknesses as a man? That's the question. That's a big question. Program changes. So first and foremost, when there is a priority to improve the strength of the rotator cuff, one thing I will say, right, if it's internal rotation on the front of the shoulder, it is actually really sore and it's quite a debilitating thing. If it's external rotator, where it's round the back, round the other shoulder blade, it doesn't hurt that much, right? And both come with pros and cons. When you feel the pain, you will either avoid doing movements that aggravate it, even though the pain is a good thing. The pain is inflammation. Inflammation is regeneration and growth. Anyway, this is more noticeable, so you're more likely to hold your hands up and go, all right, I think I've got a shoulder injury here, right? If it's on the front. When it's on the back, because the blood flow is different in the external rotator cuff, you don't actually think you're injured. You're like, oh, it's just a bit sore today. There is a dull ache, right? And there's a dull ache for a reason. It's because there's a tear in that muscle, right? It needs to be strengthened. And you need to get right in the nitty gritty with strengthening your external rotator cuff. Might take a little bit longer. However, it's the same process. It's a weak area. It's not supposed to feel like that. If you strengthen it, it will reduce the pain, improve the resilience of that area. However, it's not just about using this moment to reduce pain. It's so short term. It's absolute amateur hour. Use this as a means to not only strengthen this shoulder, but go, okay, I've neglected my knees as well. Let's be honest. I've neglected my knees. I've neglected my lower back. I've neglected my elbows. Let's make a character change and increase your personal standards so that you have a fucking mild better life. Do you know what I mean? So the nitty gritty stuff on the shop floor, program changes that need to happen. First and foremost, there needs to be an elimination of symptom raising movements, because the priority initially should be the shoulder rehab exercises until random movements like chest pressing and pulling movements or vertical shoulder presses aggravate it. So when you basically prioritize the function of the shoulder, right, and break up the function of the shoulder individually. So you're going to do like lateral flexion exercises, internal and external rotation, break up the individual movements and eliminate movements that annoy you. Like, for example, bench press. Bench press is a big one that aggravates internal rotator cuff. Sometimes bench press aggravates external rotator cuffs as well, around the back, around the other shoulder blades. Get rid of them. If it aggravates it, get rid of them. You need to have laser focus on the priority strengthening of these areas, and you can just reintroduce them later on. So this is eliminate, and what I should have added on to this sentence is temporary eliminate, right? Because I'm not a fan of eliminating anything, ever, right? Temporary eliminate them. Pressing movements out, pulling movements in, potentially. Usually that's what I do, right? Usually the pressing movements for the bench press causes the biggest drama, and the dumbbell chest presses, and I'll just take them out for like 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, until the pain goes down. Then I'll start reintroducing them at a reduced weight. Just got to be sensible with it, but by no means not do pulling movements. By no means not do lower body training. By no means not stop doing cardio or stop doing running. All this stuff, just because you've got an internal rotator cuff injury or an external rotator cuff injury, you can still do a hell of a lot, right? There is still a lot of joints in which you can strengthen on the mat. So I would genuinely say, if you've got a rotator cuff injury, if it's painful, I would say have a few weeks off the mat. If it's an internal rotator cuff injury, if it's painful, I would say have a few weeks off the mats, right? And what I mean by that is the one that gets aggravated by Kimuras, because this is going to be, it's going to be sore as fuck after every session on the mats. However, the one around the back, the shoulder blades, external rotator cuff, that's aggravated by Americanus, less so much. But you just have to be sensible. I'm not going to sit here and say don't train with these injuries on the mats. I would advise a good solid period, maybe about a month, of just really good quality strength training. Do you know what I mean? Good quality shoulder strength prioritization into your week while you're also doing the other stuff as well. If you have to go on the mats, just take it easy. Don't spar, just do tech, and just see how you respond and how serious your injury is. Not necessarily in these positions, but just see your symptoms and use your symptoms as a guide. If you're on the mat and it feels like fucking shit and your shoulder's fucked the next morning, then unfortunately you are going to have to make that call. And again, linking into the character stuff, you're going to have to make the right decision to step away from it for a bit. And if you're the character that doesn't do that, then there's no reason why this is... There's a perfectly valid reason why your body's fucked. And it's not necessarily because of age, genetics. It's because you're making terrible decisions regularly. Do you know what I mean? So, building strength through the specific ranges of motion that aggravate pain. And how this starts is you identify the range of motion that causes the pain, and then you work that as a priority in the week. You probably train it 3 times a week, I reckon, would be a good start point. So you'd be training your shoulders 3 times a week, specifically through the range of motion that brings on the pain. With rotator cuff, you've got different variations. You've got, I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger here, I'm going to step back. You've got low elbow variations, which are here, all of this stuff, and then you progress that by bringing the elbow higher, right? So, low elbow, excuse that stupid noise. Low elbow variations are easier, right? But sometimes simply just moving through internal and external rotation will bring on pain. So what you do in that case is make the movement even easier so you don't move. And what I call this is isometrics. So you will stand up into a doorway and you would get into the low elbow position and you would press, you would internally rotate through the door frame for a set period of time, 30 to 45 seconds, usually works really well. And what you're going to find is you're able to identify the exact range of motion and you're able to control the exact intensity in which you put through that in order to build the specific type of strength in this specific area that is weak. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not, just because your internal rotator cuff's fucked, it doesn't mean that you're going to struggle with the full range of motion of internal rotation. It might mean that you only feel the pain. I'm going to make myself bigger here. You might only feel the pain through this bit. So that's the only bit that needs to be worked. You might not feel pain doing all of that. And here, you might feel, oh, that's where the pain comes on. Or external, do you know what I mean? External, you might only feel it, you might not feel it here. You might start to feel it here. So you just work this bit. Because why would you train a part of the muscle fibre that doesn't need to be trained? We can absolutely get to that because that's how we build strength and resilience of the joints. But in the priority phase, right at the start where you want to laser focus everything, most of your energy wants to be going on strengthening the shoulder. Do you know what I mean? So that's how you're going to do that. Why did I press escape? I panicked, I got nervous. Hopefully you appreciate the program changes that you need to make. And obviously, fundamentally, if you listen to everything I'm saying, recover your shoulder injury, absolutely fantastic. However, the main upgrade is the character upgrade. And you will listen to what I've said word for word and do it, you'll get rid of your shoulder injury, right? It's as simple as that. However, if you haven't updated your character, your software, something's going to happen in a couple of months' time, a couple of years' time, and you're going to still start making them poor decisions again because you haven't stopped making poor decisions. You're just a person that has made good decisions for a certain period of time, right? Prioritize this as well. Be the man that deserves to have strong and resilient joints so that he can grapple, he can hike, he doesn't have painful joints, and he also understands and knows how to get rid of any injury because it's all the same stuff. Knee, elbow, shoulder, it's all the same stuff. Everything I've said in this video, if you follow word for word, you will be able to get rid of your own injuries. But it has to come from an absolute legend of a character. Use it as a warning sign to up your personal standards. How you've lived up until now has not been good enough. Until you come to that realization, you might be a person that fixes his shoulder injury. But what happens when your elbow goes? What happens when your knee goes? Up the character and all of these issues become effortless to get over because you're actually creating mental resilience within yourself and not weakness. Do you know what I mean? It all comes down to the character. Yes, it's a learning opportunity. And when it's a learning opportunity, it's an opportunity for growth, not an opportunity for weakness, not an opportunity for you to decline. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is mint for mental health, right? When you get injured, boom, mental health goes down, depression, start being stressed out with the missus, family life goes into a bit of a bad place because you need that thing, you need your thing. So this is all about keeping that thing part of your life for as long as possible. Always address your weaker areas. Don't lie to yourself and say that they don't exist. Beyond the rotator cuff, take pride in strengthening every fucking joint in your body. Especially the main ones. Especially the problematic areas. Knees, lower back. So that they're better suited to cope with the issues that arise in the future as well. Transforming who you are as a bloke on and off the mats. Like I said earlier on, inevitable. What we do after the injury is the most important part. Many people get this wrong. Many logical men turn into emotional men when they get an injury, when in fact, logic is the most important thing that you need to use after the injuries happen. Emotion needs to be used as a guide, and logic needs to be used as your path to making your joints strong and resilient. The ultimate combination: unshakable character, the mental health benefits from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the physical capabilities increased from strength training, don't have the negative effects psychologically from being injured that much, and the character stays mentally resilient. Don't stop when the pain stops. The pain was never the problem. I know that may seem like a lot to take in, especially when I'm mentioning character and mindset so frequently. And you probably came onto the video thinking about rehab exercises that are going to try and reduce pain. Listen, this is exactly why I created the longevity program. In my opinion, the best system to get you results. Sometimes it's not about what you want, sometimes it's about what you need. And I will work with you throughout the entire process extensively to get you to where you need to be. So, it doesn't matter if you're injured, it doesn't matter if you're injury prone or injury free. Understanding what to do when these issues come up is absolute gold dust when you can nail it. Because when you do nail it, you never become affected mentally by injuries because you know exactly what to do. And that's what I aim to achieve with the longevity program, and I've achieved it with many grapplers like yourself. If you are interested, the link is in the description to book onto a call with me, have a conversation, figure out whether you are a good fit for the program.